Hello and welcome back to the very new series on the existing channel North of Fatherhood. So if you're new to the channel, then appreciate that in my last build I built and developed a £500 campervan conversion from a Peugeot partner, and in this series what I'll be doing is transforming this BT Openreach Ducato van into a fresh looking camper. So with that said, let's get into it. So a couple of weeks ago, I decided to sell my Peugeot partner. So if you did miss that conversion, I'll link the video to the corner of this screen right now, or the playlist for those videos. But in this fresh series, what I'll be getting into is this 2017 Fiat Ducato panel van, which is an ex-BT Openreach van, and converting that into a camper. Now I have begun some very light work already, and I'll just show some footage on the screen just here of the BT racking that comes in all their vans. So when they're out and about doing the residential, the commercial visits, whatever they do, they've obviously got inside the back, they've got diesel heater for warmth, they've got a boiler, there's a crane, there's sockets for power, there's a microwave so they can eat when they're out and on the go, on whilst at work. All those kind of things to help with the commercial aspect of the business that BT do. But I've spent just a few days stripping most of that out. There is a small amount of the electrics to remain. I've left the diesel heater in situ because that will be repurposed throughout this build. So what I'll do right now is I'll give you a quick view or walk round of the van, and I'll talk a bit more about that as we go. So as you'd expect, as they commonly are, it is a white panel van, 2017 Fiat Ducato. It's a 2-litre version, not the 2.3, and it's a medium wheelbase, but it's a L2H2 variant, which means that it's the slightly higher roof and the slightly longer roof, but it's not as long as some of the more extreme use cases that exist where they've gone for an L3 or an L4, because for me that was getting on for 5 or 6 meters in length and wouldn't fit on the drive. But with that added bit of ceiling height, that's going to be ideal for me. So I'll just pop open this side door here. So as you can see, I've already stripped out the BT racking, as I said, and I've really just sort of cleaned it up a little bit, took it back to the panels because there was even coverings over the panels here. There's of course still the bulkhead, there's overhead storage here, and you can see the remains of some of the cabling, the wiring that was powering and connecting to, over here there was a pair of sockets, there was a microwave just there. Down on the floor in this unit here, there is of course still the diesel heater here. That's going to remain and be part of my kitchen unit. But there was also an inverter which powered the 230 volt sockets, as well as all the plethora of relays and fuses and DC to DC charger and etc. that existed there. So I've kept some of the cabling because I will purpose some bits, and I'll get into that through the series of videos that I'll be coming back with over the coming weeks. But for a medium wheelbase van, I've got some plans, got some ideas. I've already purchased a few bits and pieces that I know for sure I'll be needing, but the very next step for me is probably just eliminating this cabling that's no longer required. I've kept it all because I can probably repurpose the cables when I'm running my own cables for when I've decided where lights are going to go and where electrical points are going to go, etc, etc. And then the flooring does need to come up, so we'll need to disconnect the diesel heater just there temporarily to be able to bring up this plywood floor, treat the state of what flooring is underneath. I don't know because I've not had this up yet. And so yeah, that's pretty much the start of this build. But just to continue the walk around, there's still this yellow step towards the rear with the parking sensors on. So what I'll do here is I'll be relocating the parking sensors to the actual bumper and moving this step. And because it was a commercial van, it has the wide opening doors. They don't just open part the way, they open fully to be able to maximise the use of the space when they were working. There's two different types of hinges, I understand. There's extra wide opening hinges, standard hinges, and that perhaps comes more into play later, thinking about if you were to mount windows on the back here, because what typically people do is they put the full-size windows here. They might opt for smaller versions, that's okay as well, but when you go for the full-size glass, this hinge does actually require a cutout of that glass, so it's a slight variation of that glass, so it's something to think about. Unfortunately, I don't have the key for these deadlocks, these L4V deadlocks, so they'll be coming out at some point. There is of course one on the sliding door. So generally feeling this wasn't too bad a van given its age. It has only got 74,000 miles on the clock. Standard stereo, 6-speed gearbox, manual of course, all the things that you'd expect in any standard vehicle these days, but because it was a BT van, what they did have to the top here as well was the controls for the diesel heater, which currently are disconnected, but all of this is going to be coming out and be relocated to the cargo area somewhere. And as well, of course, there were these switches which were used for beacons, which of course have also come off. That's another thing I've done. The boiler and the lift isolation, these are of course dead now, they don't go anywhere, but I do need to strip out the cabling that exists behind it, because it still does go back into the cargo area. So that concludes the walk around tour of this next phase in the North of Fatherhood project series. I hope you'll join me in getting into what this build begins to look like and how it develops over the coming weeks. As I said, I've already taken delivery of some parts, and I'll share those more with you in upcoming releases and videos. But one thing that I'm keen to really try and get out of this video series for other people is try and bring it in, develop it and build it at a reasonable cost. Obviously the cost of motorhomes these days is extortionate. You're talking 30, 40, 50k in British pounds, upwards, depending on what it is, how big it is and the spec, etc., whether it's new or used. All those things matter. But of course, with the rising costs of fuel, because of what's going on in the world, it's stupid, we know, but it's happening all the same. It's to be considered as well. So with the costs of everything around us being so extortionate right now, I'm going to try and do this at as most reasonable a cost as possible. Where there are examples of commonly used products that are ridiculously expensive, I'm going to look for not a better alternative, but a more cost-effective alternative for those things. So you'll see that through the things that I already have prepared to put into the van, and I'll talk more about those things too in later episodes. So I think that's all I really wanted to say in this very first episode of this fresh series. This will be our reasonably priced Fiat Ducato camper van conversion. The last one, of course, was the £500 partner van conversion. So hope you'll join me along for the series. Look forward to any comments, feedback. And if you haven't already, because I have noticed there are a number of viewers from around the world that do watch my videos, but you're not yet subscribed, and you do keep coming back to watch these videos. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like. It does obviously get this video out to a broader audience, because what I've found in doing my own research, there isn't too many of these camper van series. I haven't seen any actually that take well, maybe just one, that take an ex-commercial vehicle and actually strip it back and then convert it. They're pretty much, most people are either reconditioning an existing camper van or taking a bare bones van. And so I wanted to talk a bit about the pros and cons, the thought processes, the worries, the woes of actually stripping back something like a BT van. I've seen various gas type vans as well, which have a slightly different setup of racking and all that such in the rear. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this very first episode. I'll leave it here. I look forward to seeing you in the very next one. Take care now. Bye bye. you.